The Boston Celtics are champions. Let's get into foul trouble. That was a game of 20. That was a game of pickup at 24 Hour Fitness. I mean, that was a horrible way to end the series.
I mean, yeah, it wasn't the most entertaining game, especially because of the disaster class that Kyrie and Luka offered up to us. But it was the conclusion of the series.
I felt like at the end of the first quarter, the Celtics won that little 7-0, 9-0 flurry, and then from that point over, it stopped being a competitive basketball game. It kind of felt like the Mavericks just gave up. I mean, Kyrie was just, I don't know where you want to start. I thought both Maverick stars were pretty not so great in this game. Kyrie especially, though, just so many early shot clock, 2 dribble move, sidestep, mid-range, or he took some crazy difficult shots early in the shot clock throughout this game, which doesn't help when you're in a shooting slump.
Yeah, 5 for 16 from the field, which is just not, especially after such an amazing postseason run from him, kind of redefining his post-Cavaliers career. To go out this way is definitely not great. But yeah, I think we talked about it a little bit over text. It did seem like once the Celtics just could not hit the broadside of the barn early in the game. And I think the Mavericks were playing generally pretty good defense. And after the Celtics just worked their way through that and still were on top by a pretty okay margin going into the second, I agree. It just seemed like the Mavericks were okay, we're about to lose this championship.
Yeah, it kind of felt like the part where, I don't know, it just seemed like they gave up. So it's I don't really know how much we want to really analyze this game because it doesn't really feel like a full tilt basketball game. Kind of in the same way, the game the Mavericks completely blew out the Celtics, the one game they won in this series. It was okay, once they're up by such a certain amount, Boston, is subbing in their bench players for the fourth quarter. What are we really going to take away from a game like that?
Yeah, I agree. It's more of I guess what we can take away from the series, and we'll do a lot of Celtics talk after this, but I think generally I was just surprised. I did not think the talent gap was as big as it ended up being. The Celtics, for the most part, just completely dominated this series, and it just wasn't what I expected, especially after the Mavericks run through so many difficult teams to come up and face this Celtics team that, everybody's going to say Luka Doncic wasn't fully healthy. The Celtics team wasn't fully healthy either. And it just wasn't a competitive series.
Yeah, as I would say a Luka fanboy, I don't know. I just don't think Luka's health really played much of a factor in this series. Because, there was the one game they're he's questionable after getting hit in the rib cage, and he came out and he was freaking amazing to start the game after the ribcage incident. So I don't know. I personally don't feel like Luka's health ever really played much of a factor in this series for the Mavs. And obviously, even if it did, it was not the reason they lost in this fashion.
Yeah, I think today really kind of defined who this Celtics team was, because the win, they got the win through offensive rebounding. Both Derek White and Drew Holiday were able to grab 4 offensive rebounds in this game.
I was thinking this game was similar to the previous blowout game where the Mavs blew out the Celtics, and it felt like in that game every single rebound just magnetically gravitated toward a Mavericks player, and it kind of felt that way in this game too. There was actually one offensive rebound Derek White had where he totally sideswiped a guy boxing him out and just stole it, and I was like, damn, that's why Derek White is such an impactful player. But oh my god, also I guess my last takeaway from the game, shout out to Derek White, man. Losing a tooth and then just banking in threes and getting those tough offensive rebounds and just being the ultimate, Swiss Army knife. Just
the Derek White play that made me text the group chat and say, I fucking love Derek White, was the block of Lively at the rim. Nobody can do that. Lively was right there. They were both pretty much flat-footed, and Derek White just climbs the ladder.
It was great anticipation too, because on the replay it showed that Derek White was actually coming in and gearing up for a 2-foot jump as he saw Lively getting the rebound. So he was already anticipating the putback attempt.
But yeah, so, I mean, and here we are. The Boston Celtics are champions of the 2024 season. Jason Tatum now has a ring. Jaylen Brown has a ring. Drew Holiday just grabbed his second ring. Oh, I saw an interesting thing. So Drew Holiday, he just obviously won his second ring. Do you know the one other player that has 2 rings in the 2020s? Did you see this?
Caldwell Pope.
Yep, Kentavious Caldwell Pope.
Yeah, it is interesting. You know, I feel like we are in this era of NBA history where, you know, a lot of the times the gap between maybe a Luka and Jokic or these really top tier guys or an SGA, it's really just about the role players around them. So I feel like it's not surprising throughout NBA history. You kind of see, like, if you take any given decade, there's probably one role player who was on a lot of these different championship teams.
Totally. I mean, you look at like Rodman is like kind of like that.
Yeah, I will say I do feel like Irving and Luka had some rough moments throughout this series, but I do feel like they really got let down by the supporting cast in this, especially the wings throughout this series.
Yeah, I mean the shooting just completely disappeared.
It felt like even if Irving and Luka played a lot better in this game, I don't really even see how they could have won it, even if they had played a lot better.
Yeah, no. I tend to agree with you. I mean, I just think this Boston Celtics team is on a complete another level than the Mavericks, and it was hard to like put that into context coming into this series because like the fact of the matter is the Celtics they did have some injury luck. As we always say, you can only take out who's in front of you, but it's kind of a shame because I do think even if they faced those healthy teams, I think we probably would have had the same result. This is a really special Celtics team, and like you contextualize it within history, like at the end of the day, when everything's all written and, you know, the asteroid hits the earth and we're all dust, this Celtics team is probably going to have 3 Hall of Fame players on it in a Jason Tatum, a Jaylen Brown, probably a Drew Holiday. I don't know, Kristaps Porzingis could get frisky in Olympic play and sneak in there too. Joe Mazzulla is well on his way to being a Hall of Fame head coach. Brad Stevens may very well be the best GM in the league with the moves that he has made over the last couple of years. It's just a all-around franchise victory to hang up that 18th banner.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was a great season for them. They were the most dominant team all year. It's just, it is a little disappointing. I feel like this is now 2 seasons in a row where the NBA Finals have been kind of just a complete, like, bleh.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they just, I don't know. One of these years, you got to think, like 6 years in a row, we get different teams winning the finals. One of these years, we're going to get 2 of those teams to play, right?
Yeah. I mean, I guess we've had some reappearances. The Celtics have shown up twice. Are the Celtics the only team to go twice in that 6-year span?
Heat.
The Heat, yes, my Heat, yes.
But yeah, that's it.
Yeah, you know, it's weird. Like, I saw this thing on Twitter and I agreed. It's like, we've had 10 finals games last year, and I don't think there was like a single super memorable game.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think probably the most... Unfortunately for Celtics fans, I think the most memorable game is that Dallas Mavericks blowout just because it was like so historically gigantic.
Yeah, like I feel like that'll be one they bring up in like future broadcasts when there's future finals blowouts, but I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to really remember that game very well.
It's more of a meme.
I think the Celtics literally put in the bench with like, 2 minutes left in the third? 3 minutes left in the third
both teams. Yeah. Both teams did. How much of the post-game, like, ceremonies did you end up watching?
Oh, Patrick, as you know, I'm a fan of the Heat.
Yes.
The Lakers.
Yes.
The Sixers, the Knicks, the Mavericks.
Mm-hmm.
So pretty much my favorite teams are all Celtics.
Yeah, foes.
Dislikers. So I didn't watch any of it. I turned off the TV and walked away.
Well, lucky for you, James.
I didn't want to see them bask in the glory.
I totally get that. But lucky for you, I watched every single moment of it. And boy, was it cringy at spots.
I mean, I saw Tatum realizing he should try to make a moment when he tried to copy Kevin Garnett. That was not
Ooh,
the best.
yeah. So I felt like
I'm trying to refrain from dunking on Jason Tatum in this episode since they just won the championship, but he has given us all so much ammo.
okay, can we just I gotta defend Jason Tatum a little bit for 1 second. He had a good game yesterday. He just had some low lights.
The game the Mavericks stopped trying. It was crazy. Wow, man.
All-time hater performance right here.
No, I mean, I don't want to take anything away from him, but I really don't feel like the Mavericks just didn't. It was so ditzy, like, you know.
I think they were just missing shots.
I'll say even the Celtics by like the halfway through the third quarter looked like they weren't even going full tilt anymore.
Well, yeah, they were up by 20. My favorite, here's a dunk on the Celtics moment. I thought it was hilarious in the fourth quarter how Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum both were like taking turns as it was secured. They're taking turns doing these 10 dribble move combos to try to just like put the knife in the Mavericks, and they just brick back to back to back. And the whole crowd is standing. The whole crowd is ready to like blow the roof off the place. And then the last one, Jaylen Brown bricks, and then they just end up getting subbed out. But I think that was a really nice moment. The Al Horford kind of comforting Jason Tatum there. That kind of, for me, summed up this era of like Celtics basketball and all of the tough losses that they had endured over this really like 7-year run. I thought that was like the best.
You know what's...
Go on.
I was just gonna say it's so funny because I feel like when I'm like 20 years removed from this era of Celtics basketball, like the burning image of this team in my head is always gonna be Al Horford shooting an open corner three at the bottom of my TV screen.
Yeah, as
like,
it should be.
I've seen that moment like so many times in the last 6 years. Like it's like Al Horford wide open, bottom of the screen, like never at the top. He's always in that bottom right corner for some reason.
Yeah, I mean, hey, that's his. They should write his name.
Why are the Celtics always going that direction? They never go the other direction. I don't understand it.
I mean, Jaylen Brown's on the floor. But so that was like the one organic moment that I was able to identify throughout the like end of this game. Then we had the "we did it" chant, which was just like so cringy. Coupled by like, it was kind of nice when you saw Tatum with Deuce, but also like the post-game comments after where he's like, yeah, he told me I was the best in the world. Like Deuce Tatum is on watch for worst take of the week with that, if he actually did tell Jason Tatum that.
I don't know if he actually told him that.
Yeah, I don't know if he did either. But then I thought the first commercial after the Celtics win the championship is this Jordan Brand campaign commercial for Tatum, where like this guy's like putting up a billboard and to unveil Tatum's new slogan, "Don't stop disbelieving," which is like the most like white boomer from Boston shoe campaign slogan of all time. Like he's like, it's so lame. It's so forced.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel bad because I feel like the Celtics have guys like Drew Holiday and Derek White who are like the anti-cringe.
Yeah.
But I feel like Jason Tatum wasn't always cringe.
I can't speak to that.
I feel like when Tatum first came into the league, he was like cool.
I think you just didn't hate him yet.
No, like I don't know. I feel like something's changed.
I did have the thought: should Al Horford just like pull a Michael Strahan and retire right now?
I mean, I guess I just feel like the way Horford plays the game, they're kind of well situated to run it back. So you may as well.
Yeah.
If you, I mean, capping off your career with the double would be pretty sweet. I mean, the Celtics are definitely going to be a really, really good, strong team next year. So
yeah, that is true. I did find it another thing about the ESPN coverage that I found really kind of weird and off-putting was having Julius Randle on the post-game show, and like they're all trying to have these like deep discussions about the Celtics place and like if they can repeat and stuff. And Julius Randle's just like, well, I sure as hell am not going to say they're going to repeat right now. Like, take these people that are like completely biased off the panel right now, ESPN.
Yeah, it is kind of weird how they bring in all these players like Paul George and Embiid throughout the series. Like, I don't know. I feel like sometimes when they get the current day players and these guys are just kind of there, it's like, what are they actually doing there?
They're just working up they're beefing up their mixtape, their demo reel, so they can audition when they retire.
Yeah. Although, shout out to Embiid for the tampering openly on TV. That was
That's
funny.
true. We didn't talk about that yet. To anyone that didn't see, in Game 4, Embiid dragged up his dream girl, Paul George, up on the stage, and they're like openly, basically talking about how much he wants him to be his teammate next year.
Yeah, I wonder after Harden's playoff collapse if he's like, damn, maybe all that things he said about Morey aren't true.
Yeah. I know. He did say, I saw like this clip on his podcast. I think it was like 2-3 weeks ago, where Paul George is indicating like how like, yeah, we all hear about how people treat players in this league and like that reputation goes around, talking about Daryl Morey. So it's like, are you just going to put that aside?
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, that was. I mean, this finals was. This was a finals. This was a accumulation of. I thought overall this season, I thought was a pretty good regular season and a pretty letdown in the playoffs.
Yeah, we just didn't have like many great series at all. We've
signature moments. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think obviously like maybe that's where we should go right here is like, when you think of the 2023-2024 season, like what are the things that are going to come to your mind?
I feel like the moment I'm always going to look back on in this season, and it's not because of Celtic slander, is really that opening week game between the Timberwolves and the Celtics, where it came down to like Ant just kind of going mano-a-mano with Brown and Tatum. Because before that game, I don't think anyone would have said Ant is as good as Brown or Tatum, and I felt like that was kind of the game where Anthony Edwards truly arrived more than any of these playoff games. Was that early regular season game versus Boston? I feel like that like end of that game from the very beginning of this season is always gonna be my lasting memory from this season of like the biggest moment.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair to say. Like that's definitely something that I will remember, and it's kind of a moment for the Celtics to be like, hey, like we're not invincible. We really gotta like put this together. I mean, one thing that I will always remember from this season, obviously, it was Victor Wembanyama's rookie year. And like, yeah. I'd never seen anything like that before.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, there's definitely some. I felt like this season though was like the blue ball season. It was like we've got a guy averaging more points than minutes, and it's the best scoring season of all time, and he's hurt, and now he doesn't even qualify to be the scoring.
Oh yeah, the Embiid 73-point game. Yeah,
Embiid scored 73 points like a week before his season ended.
Yeah, that was pretty insane. I mean, as a Suns fan, I will always remember the Bradley Beal blue balls extravaganza roller coaster. That was not fun at all. Jeremy Sohan playing a lot of point guard.
Yeah, those are things like
Draymond Green choking out Rudy Gobert.
Yeah, it did feel like this was probably the most relevant season in the history of the Timberwolves. It felt like they were involved in like, I would say like half of the, if you've made like a top 10 moments of the season, you've probably got the Timberwolves in like 4 or 5 of the games.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, playoff wise, that game 7 was like probably the most like the single most iconic game from this postseason. And it would have been a lot more iconic if the Timberwolves had went on to win the Western Conference Finals. Sorry, Max. But I think that will always stand in Anthony Edwards' lore.
Yeah, I mean, I'm ready. I'm calling it now. We're getting an Anthony Edwards, John Morant beef next year. It's happening. Ooh. There's just no way it doesn't happen.
Yeah, you're right. Sign me up, too. That will be incredible. So
I'm on Team Ant-Man.
I thought maybe it could be fun to do a little game of Eastern Conference. What is this team thinking after the playoffs? With all of the just teams that were contenders but were eliminated. I think it would go too long if we did the West too, but I wrote down 4 teams: Bucks, Knicks, 76ers, Heat. What are we thinking? What are they thinking? What should they be thinking? Where do you want to start?
I think let's start with the Knicks, because I think they've earned the title of second best team through all this, even though they lost to the Pacers. I still think that's fair to say.
Yeah. I mean, that's a hot take just in itself that you kind of glossed over. But do you feel that way? That the Knicks have earned the title as the second best team in the East going into next season?
Well, they beat the Sixers, so that's a feather in their cap. Against the Pacers, obviously, they weren't even close to being fully healthy. Obviously, after the OG trade, I mean, the Knicks with OG and Anunoby in their lineup lost like 3 games the whole season, including like the playoffs. They were just unfreaking believably good. I personally think if Philadelphia has a good offseason, I'd put them right back at my number 2 spot. But right now, Philadelphia has like 4 players under contract, and like one of those 4 is Paul Reed, and I think the other is a guy who's like the 14th guy in their
Yeah.
As it stands right now, Philadelphia doesn't have any players. Like, Kelly Oubre is not under contract. So I don't think Philly, it's even fair, because we don't know what their team is. So I think New York has to be number 2, right? Unless you think Milwaukee?
I mean, it's hard for me to look at that. Like, if we're giving the Knicks that grace, and I mean, I loved the Knicks experience, especially in the playoffs. I think them as a team should definitely believe that they are the second best team in the Eastern Conference. But this was kind of the year from hell from the Bucks, and I did get some answers that are good for them. I think we saw in the playoffs, Chris Middleton can be a real contributor in the playoffs still. I think we had real questions. Dame had a pretty good playoffs. He wasn't able to make it through. And Giannis had maybe the best season that he's had in since his MVP seasons, maybe, at least during the regular season. So, I mean, if I'm the Bucks, I'm definitely feeling pretty good about where I'm standing. Although there's definitely a lot of question marks. I mean, Giannis hasn't been able to make it through a season healthy in 2 years running now. But I think those are definitely the candidates, like you said, until we know what the 76ers are. It's like they have such a high ceiling and low floor for what this offseason could bring.
Yeah, but the Knicks, going back to the Knicks, I think for them it's just getting healthy and seeing what this team looks like over the course of a much bigger sample size. Because did they even lose a single game with OG and Randall playing together? I don't know if they did. If they did, they lost 1.
Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah.
What this Knicks team was really missing in the playoffs was that second scoring punch outside of Brunson. And I think Randall, for some of the faults I think he has as a player, I think he would have helped with that quite a bit.
Totally.
Yeah, and I just feel like the Knicks, I mean, I truly do think if you had a fully healthy Knicks team, they could have gone toe-to-toe with the Celtics.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely a tough matchup. That I think you're kind of getting at. Like, that's the one question for this Celtics team going into next season is if you meet one of the Monstar bigs in the playoffs in Giannis, who we've seen run rampant through the Celtics before, in Embiid, in Jokic, what happens against one of those teams? It might be simple. They might just be so good, so deep that they're able to deal with something like that. But I think that is the big question going into next season for the Celtics.
Yeah, I mean, the Celtics in relation to the Sixers is weird because they own the Sixers, like, full stop. They haven't lost them in the playoffs. Obviously, last year, the Sixers were up 3-2 and then ended up blowing that series. So I think we've seen the Sixers are getting closer and closer and closer to matching the Celtics, but they haven't done it yet. Obviously, they had more success against them in the regular season this year than it felt like they have in years past. So I think Philly is right there if they can put together a competent roster, because Maxi's shown that he's a pretty bona fide playoff star at this point between these last 2 seasons. So I still, without knowing Philly's roster, like them more than Milwaukee. Milwaukee is kind of...
So you're out on Milwaukee.
Clippers. I don't like Doc Rivers.
Okay.
I don't trust Doc Rivers.
Okay.
And my other worry for Milwaukee isn't really the offense, because I actually think Milwaukee's primed to be a really good offensive team again next year. I'm a huge Damian Lillard guy. I think that their offense is going to be good. I'm just worried that Middleton is a year older, Lopez is a year older, I think I saw throughout the season, Dame is a pretty high effort defender, but he's just not a very talented defender. And I'm just worried that Milwaukee's ever going to be able to put together the type of defense that would be able to keep up with the Celtics if they're having an average shooting game.
Yeah, I mean,
it feels like if they were to play
definitely
Philly, Maxey would average like 35 points a game.
Against the Bucks. Yeah, no, it would be very tough.
And it's just hard to win a series when you're giving the other point guard that many points. Like, it feels like the type of series where Brunson would go kind of crazy.
Yeah, Brunson would go so insane if he was able to pick on Dame over and over and over again. Because, yeah, these are all just like really smart teams as well that are going to do a really good job of identifying the other team's fault.
Yeah, I just don't know if I love like Rivers versus Tibbs or Rivers versus Nurse in one of those matchups.
Yeah, no, I don't love that either. Lawrence Fishburne coaching that team.
Yeah. I mean, Milwaukee's such a weird team, man. I mean, their playoff resume and this whole Giannis's first MVP season going forward, like, era has been so strange.
Yeah, so hit or miss. I think I've never felt better about the Bucks than when they lost that Eastern Conference Finals or was that Eastern Conference Finals or second round against the Celtics?
Which team? Oh, that was the semifinals.
Yeah. I don't think I ever felt like more solid about that team than in that series, because the 21 run was obviously kind of weird. I mean, I don't want to take anything away from them. They won the championship, but there was just a lot of contributing factors to that. So how do you think the Heat fall into this picture?
It just depends with Jimmy, because the Heat, that's the big question of the Heat's offseason is, are they bringing Jimmy back? And if they are bringing Jimmy back, how can they supplant him with a little bit more scoring punch? Because the Heat were just not a good offense the whole season. And we went over this, but the Heat won games when Jimmy shot the ball more than 18 times, and they lost games when Jimmy didn't shoot the ball. And is that because he's getting older, or is that because he was playing with a bunch of knick-knack injuries? I mean, he's 35, so... we saw throughout the season all of Jimmy's typical athletic stats, like self-creation buckets were way down. Way more of Jimmy Bucket's points this year came off of assisted buckets or team-created play type buckets. So I'm a little worried about Jimmy as that self-creating 1A guy at this point for the Heat. So I would comfortably put the Heat as the fifth team in the East going into next year, especially with all the question marks surrounding them.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. And I think the Cavs do have upside to be a better team.
Yeah,
than
I think Cleveland and even Orlando, I think both of those teams can say oh, well, you're going to put Philly third without knowing who's on their team, but we're also probably going to shake things up a lot. So I think both Cleveland and Orlando could definitely say that.
But
the one team that I don't know if I feel any better or worse about them is Indiana.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely feel better.
I feel like I could just peg Indiana between 4 and 7 next year in any one of those 4 spots, and Yeah, I feel better about Indiana than I did coming into the season and even going into the playoffs. I was definitely surprised that Nembhard ended up being a real playoff guy, especially against a Knicks team that kind of had the perfect pieces to defend a guy like that, and he was still very effective. So I think that's a huge win for Indiana, but I would not want to sign Siakam to this gigantic max deal that they're most likely about to have to lock him in on. I will say for Indiana though, they are so young and progression isn't linear, but that one piece that you reminded me in the playoffs, I was like, it feels like they need another self-creator, and you're like, well, Mathurin is going to come back, so I don't know, maybe next year when they're fully healthy with Mathurin, they take a step forward. It's difficult to imagine them supplanting a New York, Philly, Boston in a playoff setting, whereas I think you could talk me into them doing that to any other team in the East.
Totally. I agree with you on that. And that brings us back to the Celtics being, I think, the clear favorite in the East coming out of this season. And this is kind of definitive of this Celtics run of, they're just so steady. And I don't think they were overwhelming in this series, but it's hard to think of them as this like completely overwhelming team, because really I think they're more of one of these like 04 Pistons of,
I mean, I will say that you can only play who's in front of you, but they had an easy path.
Totally.
So it's just when we enter next postseason, if the other teams are healthy, I just don't think they're going to steamroll the East.
Yeah, and
if you told me every team is healthy, I would take the field over the Celtics.
And I also think they're sneaky older than what they seem like. Obviously, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are young, but Holiday's old. Kristaps Porzingis has elderly man's like lower extremities. I'm a little worried about their just big man position going forward. That's something that I'd like to, if I'm a Celtics fan, I really want to see them focus on this offseason, which I was very surprised they have a lot of pick equity to like dedicate to something like that.
Yeah, I think though for the Celtics, there is that, this is why I'm still not super high on Missoula. It kind of feels like, Tillman's in the game and they run all the same stuff, but it's like, dude, Tillman is like kind of wide.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you could probably run some killer handoff actions with Tillman and Tatum, like near the free throw line, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I just feel like there's a lot of X's and O's things the Celtics still haven't even unlocked with their own team that I feel like they could add so many wrinkles to the way they play that I don't know. Like, I don't know. I think that's my worry as the Celtics. I still am not really sold on Missoula, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard because it's like,
it just doesn't seem like he's a very good tactician.
How do we judge a coach? By their regular season record, by obviously playoff adjustments, but like playoff record. And, he has like one of the best winning percentages of all time at this point for any coach. And obviously that's over the course of only 2 years, but it's hard to have won as many games as he has. And then, we just didn't really have to see him make all that many adjustments. But this is coming off the heels of a Eastern Conference Finals last season where they were able to force a Game 7 after going down 3-0, which I think there's a lot of coaches where you could just say, like, that's not going to happen. Like, if they got Doc Rivers on that pine, I'm probably saying that's not going to happen. But it also speaks to just the character of the guys on the team.
Yeah. No.
What about the Mavs? What would you like to see from the Mavs this offseason?
I don't know. I feel like the Mavs need to get a stretch big, and I don't know how they're going to just switch out their current guys like Derek Jones Jr. for more reliable. Like, they don't really have a pathway to switch a Derek Jones Jr. into a Caldwell Pope, so that's like the tough part for the Mavs. I don't really know what they're going to do.
Yeah, so they've basically got 2 pick swaps that they can play around with in 26 and 31. And then they've got the $16 million contract of Tim Hardaway. They've got the $12 million contract of Josh Green. If they really wanted to fuck around and get crazy, they could cash in the $13 million Gafford contract. They're not completely bereft of assets, but it's definitely getting there just because of all of the protections that they've put on their picks over the next couple of years. They've made it a little hard on themselves to be able to trade any of them, but they've got Luka Doncic under contract, which that's always a good place to start.
Yeah, I think it's just the West is so tough, man. I mean, it's like maybe you enter next year and all of a sudden the Thunder do have a really big, strong backup center. And they can play lineups with Chet at the 4 and Jalen Williams looks like
Jalen Williams doesn't disappear.
And all of a sudden we're like, oh my God, the Thunder. I think that's what I'm just worried about with the Mavs. It's not really that they're going to drop off as much. It's just that the other teams in the West are just all so good.
Do you feel like this was Luka's chance in Dallas?
Oh, like this is his 07 Cavs
Was
moment?
This his...
He's probably going to have to leave.
Yeah, I mean...
This did feel very '07 Cavs-y in that, like, the '07 Cavs were kind of a really good defensive team that made it all the way to the finals and met up with a team that was way too talented to compete with. Like,
the Celtics are a pretty good proxy for what the Spurs were at the time, like just roll in the league. And then, yeah, what you were saying, I mean, we've still got the Nuggets sitting there. We've got the Timberwolves, I would think, are only going to get better. We've got the Thunder, who are only going to get better. And then we've got all these random ass, elderly superstar teams like the Lakers, the Warriors, the Suns, who still have very, very high level players. And we don't even know what's going to happen with those teams.
Yeah, I mean, Luka is going to be able to sign, I think, like just the stupidest extension in NBA history. Is it this offseason or next offseason?
I think it's next one. Like, yeah, this one's like Tatum's $315 million supermax offseason.
Yeah, I think Lucas is going to be approaching, like, I think, what is it, like 80 or $100 million a season, basically.
Yeah.
When Lucas signs his Supermax extension. So, I mean, don't think he's going to say no to that.
Or actually, so I think he is extension eligible right now.
Yeah, I don't think Luka's saying no to that much money. So, I think Dallas probably feels confident he'll be there for another couple of years.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, but that is the way of the NBA. I mean, hey, they just made the finals. He's not requesting a trade tomorrow. But it will be interesting how they pretty much over the last, 18 months have not made one single misstep after making only missteps for Luka's entire career leading up to this.
I saw that picture again yesterday of Brunson, Porzingis, and Luka, and you're like, man.
Yeah. How do you mess that up?
That was a fumble.
I know. And you got Rick Carlisle as your coach, who is like...
Yeah, but I mean, that's what happens with guys like Luka, these like super, super generational guys where it's like they just make the team way too good, way too fast.
Yeah. Well, I don't even think it was that. It was just they bet on the wrong guy,
Well, I think it's that, but I think it's also just like they're like, okay, maybe we believe in Brunson, but we want Brunson to be where he's going to be in 4 years tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they definitely viewed Brunson as a second-round pick.
Yeah, which is kind of crazy because he was huge in their run to the WCF.
Oh, he would have just been so good for them. Just such a calming presence.
Yeah, I mean, I guess for Dallas, the one thing you will be really happy about is now it's 2 postseasons in a row that as long as you've given Luka the one other star guard, he's made it at least to the conference finals.
That's true. But
it's just weird because that's sandwiching a year where they missed the playoffs.
Yeah, it's pretty unheard of to have this like weird up and down path that they've had. I mean, as long as they don't do any more of that fucking around and missing the playoffs, I think they'll be okay. But
yeah, I think the one thing they can do this offseason is just find some sort of stretch big, just because Kleber, I don't know. It seems like it's like a combination of the shoulder injury, but also like a lack of confidence, and it's hard to gauge how much is which, or if it's completely the injury, or if it's completely the confidence. But it just kind of feels like Kleber's time with the Mavs is maybe coming to an end.
I'd love to see them find, I mean, I wouldn't love to, but they should. I think they should try and find a wing that is a little bit more of a reliable scorer than PJ Washington or Derek Jones Jr. Those guys were both huge finds, and I think I was really surprised by what PJ Washington was able to give them over the end of this season. But the way the finals shook out, were kind of like, it kind of showed us who we thought PJ Washington and Derek Jones Jr. were coming into kind of the trade deadline. And, hey, they played way above their heads because they have this generational superstar in Luka who is able to just yank the best out of his guys for, 95% of the playoffs. But once you get to a finals, it becomes almost impossible to keep doing that and keep getting those kinds of results.
Yeah. All right. Should we get to best take, worst take?
Yeah, let's get to best take, worst take.
I feel like I don't have a lot of best takes this week.
Oh, I think there's a very clear best take. And you didn't watch the post game.
The post game stuff.
My best take of the week.
I got Froyo during
that sounds
post-game.
nice.
It was very
what kind
wholesome.
of Froyo guy are you?
Dude, this might be on worst take next week. I'm like a big on fruit flavors.
Okay.
So a lot of the times I'll stack like a pomegranate Froyo, but usually I do get plain tart.
Yeah, hey.
Because the Froyo shop by my house doesn't have a lot of good fruit options, so I have to go more toward the vanilla chocolate realm.
I'm a plain tart guy too. I'm a plain tart, some strawberries, some granola. That's my kind of thing too.
Yours is healthy.
Yeah, hey, it's just I've tried the chocolate stuff and I just always end up being underwhelmed. And when I get the granola, the fruit on the plain tart, I'm happy. I'm a happy camper.
I was a little unhinged yesterday. I got cookie dough, Cocoa Puffs, chocolate chips, cherry sauce.
It's so hard
mochi.
not to do that when you see all this stuff like that laying
You know
out.
what? You know how you know you fucked up is when if it costs more than $10, it means you did way too much.
Yeah.
That's my new rule I go with. It's like if you have like a sub $8 Froyo, you have a good serving size. If you're between 8 and 10, it's like you're pushing it. And if you're over 10, you're eating a meal. You're not even eating.
I kind of have the same problem at Chipotle sometimes. Is I put everything that I like on a burrito, except what I really should be doing is trying to make the best burrito.
Well, okay. You know what's weird with Chipotle? This is what I truly don't understand. I get the same thing every time I go, and it costs a different amount every time I go.
Explain.
Like, I swear to God, I get the double chicken bowl with guac. I get the two, cost edition items every time I go. And it's been as low as $12 and it's been as high as $21. And I dead ass never understand what is going to cause it to be one of those two prices or something in between.
I couldn't tell you, but I have the same exact experience. I have no idea how much it's going to cost every time I go to Chipotle.
Actually, do you want to hear I have to tell this story now because we're on this topic.
Yes, please.
When I was in college, they opened a Starbucks on campus my final year, and every single day the Starbucks had a line going way out the door because it was the only one on campus, and it took forever. And I get the same thing at Starbucks every single day, and I have for the last 8 years. I just get a venti cold brew with half and half, and every day I went, it would cost a different amount. Now, granted, the different amount would be like a 40-cent difference because it's like a $5, $6. I think at the time a $4 item, but they shut down because they were apparently the staff was just so overwhelmed and in over their heads with all the activity, and I was like, that makes so much sense. My coffee changes its price every day.
Who even knows what they were charging you for? They were charging you for a bacon Gouda sandwich every day.
No, I literally brought them my receipt one day because after the 10th day, I was like, what is going on? So literally one day I came in with multiple receipts and I was explain this, and they were like, I don't know, dude, I'm a college student, I don't care.
Damn,
I should probably not carry it. I'm also a college student. I don't know why I care about things like this.
If TikTok were around at the time, you could have absolutely destroyed the internet with that little finding.
I probably could have. Okay.
Best take of the week is going to Derek White, who, for whoever, if you missed the game, there was a terrible play where Derek White's face basically got kneed into the hardwood.
That was horrible to watch in real time.
And it broke a bunch of his teeth. And on the podium at the end of the game, Derek White said, "I'll lose all my teeth for a championship." And if that doesn't just sum up Derek White, I had to give him best take of the week. I love that. I absolutely love that.
Yeah. No, I love that too. Derek White is awesome. All right. I think I have a worst take. It's not really a take, but I feel like because it's made up, I think it is a take.
Okay. I'm willing to hear it.
Stephen A. Smith says black coaches have an issue with JJ Redick doing a podcast with LeBron James. Quote, numerous black coaches called me expressing how they took issue with the podcast taking place. I don't believe him.
Do they have a problem with the podcast, or just that he's with JJ Redick, or that he's just doing a podcast?
I straight up don't believe that's true. I think Stephen A made that up.
Yeah.
And you know why? Because JJ Redick has destroyed Stephen A on his own show so many times over the past few years. I think he has a little bit of a grudge.
Yeah. And I mean, Stephen A's never been a Lakers guy.
I also we're gonna get the JJ addressing Shams apparently now that the finals are over.
Oh my gosh. There's going to be so much great content in the next week and a half. I'm not going to lie and say that I'm not very, very excited.
My theory is that there's one coach who texted Stephen A and it's Darvin Ham. And he was like, dude, LeBron's exposing that I don't know shit.
Hey, that is a coach in the NBA. I had a couple. How do you feel about Grant Williams attending the NBA Finals, Game 5, as a bad take?
I thought it was weird behavior.
I thought it was like I should have known the
because-
second Grant Williams walked in that building that the Mavericks were going to lose.
See, the only thing, though, that's weird about it to me is I feel like obviously he had a bad exit with the Mavs, so I could see why he's rooting for the Celtics. But didn't he have like serious beef with Missoula, and Missoula was just benching him?
He had a very,
That's why I thought it was a little weird. That's why I thought it was a little weird because of the tiff with him and Joe.
The Celtics didn't even give him a like return video, which I feel like Grant Williams had enough moments in Boston that in 2024 he would get like a thank you video. But I also, did you see Grant Williams brought Brandon Miller, Mark Williams, and Harry Giles into the Celtics locker room after they won?
Grant Williams is a weird guy.
Other candidates, I don't think that really should be it. Rashad McCants said he respects Reggie Miller's legacy over LeBron.
That was so bad. No, okay, dude, speak no more.
Yeah, it was. That's about as bad as it gets right there. I thought that would be most likely our take.
Yeah, that's the worst take of the week.
Yeah, I mean, it's all just based in one, LeBron hating. I do think Rashad McCants, I think Gilbert Arenas just found him and realized that he would say literally the most outlandish things and was like, you've got a job, man. Welcome back to the limelight.
Yeah. Okay, so we have to choose the worst take of June now because next week we're going to do our worst takes of the season.
Ooh, okay.
So this is only our third. This is our third Monday of the. This is our second Monday. This is the third Monday / it's a Tuesday episode of the month. So it's between Perkins saying he's better than Gobert and Rashad McCants saying that Reggie Miller has a better legacy than LeBron James. Those are the real contenders for June.
I mean, I feel like there's
even the NBA Finals takes were weak this year.
I feel like, given the winner of the championship, there's only one way we can go with this, and that's to award Celtics legend Kendrick Perkins with the victory for this month.
No, I feel like McCants is worse.
Yeah, he's saying
McCants. That's Reggie Miller.
See, but he's not saying necessarily that Reggie Miller is better than LeBron. He's just saying he respects Reggie Miller's legacy over LeBron's, which is still unhinged, but
I think that's super
it's
unhinged. I feel like that's a lot worse.
It's very like old person, like you should stay on the team that drafted you core, which is like not unheard of. Whereas like Kendrick Perkins saying that he's a better defender than Rudy Gobert is just like objectively not true.
I don't know. Max, where are you leaning between these two?
I got to give it to my guy, Rashad. I think that's definitely the worst one.
Okay.
Rashad. All right. So that means on our, I guess that'll be our episode. So that's the 24th. That's before the draft. Okay, so on the 24th, we are going to be doing our big season-long build-up to the worst takes of the year. We've got all of the worst takes in the month. We've got me and Patrick's worst takes. Thank you guys for submitting some. And I'm excited. I'm excited to do this bracket.
It's going to be fun. It's going to be funny to go back and talk about our terrible takes and just the world of NBA's terrible takes. Wow, this has been such an amazing first season with you guys. Thank you, James, Max. legend. I'm so happy that you were able to join the team. We were talking about 2024 NBA season. What will we remember it as? What I will remember it as is just like consuming it with you guys. I've had so much fun. I've had so much fun like hearing what all of you guys listening have had to say throughout the season. And it's only going to get better from here. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, this is awesome. This is a fun ride. Before we go, just 2 quick shout-outs because I feel like we didn't really talk about it at all. Jaylen Brown winning Finals MVP. Felt like that was really well-deserved.
Yeah.
I thought he was really awesome throughout, not just this series, the whole playoffs. And then just because we didn't really talk about it last episode, but rest in peace to Jerry West, arguably the greatest NBA executive of all time.
That's true.
Amazing coach, amazing player, the logo.
Their best point guard of all time in my book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 9 finals appearances. Crazy. Hey, I'm glad he didn't have to see another Celtics championship.
Yeah, we spared him. The universe spared him. All right, we will catch you guys on the next one. Peace.